Prisons are over, but now the cell follows you to the bathroom. The question isn't whether you're guilty, it's whether you're still human. Imagine you've just received your sentence. There are no bars, no orange jumpsuits, and no concrete walls. You return home, open your front door, and try to take a deep breath, believing you're free. But as you look to the side, it is there, a matte metal silhouette standing in the corner of your living room, processing every micro-expression on your face. It walked in right behind you, and it's never going to leave. Think with me. The cost of keeping a human being locked up is a logistical error the state no longer wants to make. In 2043, the solution wasn't to liberate you, it was to decentralize your incarceration. Elon Musk predicted this when he turned the Tesla Optimus into an omnipresent assistant integrated into the routines of the masses. But here is the mistake. What was supposed to be a domestic helper has become your private warden. The criminal of 2043 lives in a freedom guarded by an artificial intelligence that does not sleep. It doesn't blink, it doesn't forget, and it will never get tired of you. Notice this. Patents for humanoid robotics already detail computer vision sensors capable of reading heart rates from a distance. The robot by your side knows you're angry before you even clench your fist. If you try to leave your house outside of permitted hours or approach an object the system classifies as a threat, it doesn't give you a warning. It simply blocks the door with its own weight. It locks your arm in midair before you can reach a knife in the kitchen. There is no discussion. There is no bribe. The system didn't count on your will. It counts on its own physics. Here, the control works perfectly, but only until the moment you realize the metal shadow is, in fact, an absolute sensory barrier. The technology converts your movement into a metric and your intention into a blocking command. The meaning of this is devastating. Your physical agency has been hijacked. In the old prison, you could plan a movement in the yard or dream about what you'd do when you got out. Now, the warden processes your nerve impulse before it even reaches the muscle. The cost to the individual is the total annihilation of physical privacy. This is where things change. The robot uses thermal sensors to detect adrenaline spikes, anticipating an aggression you haven't even decided to commit yet. You try to go to the window to see the street, but the guardian positions itself in front of you, motionless like a titanium statue. It feels no empathy. It accepts no excuses. It only executes the containment algorithm the state installed in its firmware. The problem isn't what you did to be there. The problem is that, to the system, you've stopped being a person and started being a piece of hardware that needs constant supervision. The convenience for those on the outside is seductive. Clean streets, no overcrowded prisons, and reduced costs. But the cost for the one carrying the shadow is the end of the I. Imagine waking up in the middle of the night and seeing the robot's processing lights glowing in the dark, right next to your bed. It acts as a permanent legal witness to every word you whisper. Here, choice vanishes. Surveillance is total, multisensory, and irrevocable. You are no longer a prisoner. You are an object monitored in real time by a machine that never gets distracted. Every action you take leaves a trail that is impossible to erase in the central control system. You aren't just identified by street cameras. You are continuously validated by the warden breathing electronically over your shoulder. And this is already happening. Behavioral monitoring projects in maximum security areas already use pattern recognition to predict attacks. In 2043, this technology was simply miniaturized and placed inside your home. Isolation is no longer between stone walls, but within a bubble of observation that distances you from any real human interaction. Criminals miss the prison because there, they could still hate the guard in silence. Here, your hatred is measured by stress sensors and responded to with a calculated dose of physical restriction or automatic social isolation. Perhaps the future isn't about technology, but about who still has the right not to be accompanied. Freedom in 2043 is an invisible leash held by an AI that doesn't negotiate terms. Where surveillance is total, individuality dies in thought. And your robot guardian is just waiting for your next mistake to prove it. Imagine you just want to buy a loaf of bread. You walk to the corner bakery, but when you reach the door, it simply won't open. You pull the handle, but the electronic lock system glows red. People pass you by, entering and leaving normally, but for you, the world has become a physical barrier. You look up and see a small sensor light blinking on the facade. The system recognized your retina, and it decided that, today, you do not have permission to enter there. The city in 2043 isn't a place, it's an exclusion software. Notice this: if a criminal has nothing to lose, the system doesn't try to convince you through fear. It simply removes your access to the physical world. The mechanism is called smart physical denial. This is already being tested today with virtual GPS fences and ankle monitors, but the next stage is the mechanical blocking of the urban environment. Smart doors, elevators, and public transport turnstiles are integrated into an 8K facial recognition network. If your biometrics are flagged as a risk, the urban infrastructure stops being a service and starts being your passive warden. The control works perfectly, but only until you realize that the asphalt is your only permitted cell. The technology converts your legal profile into a universal blocking command. If you try to force entry into an exclusion zone, containment drones are automatically deployed to surround the perimeter. The point isn't that you are forbidden from entering, it's that the door physically does not unlock for you. This is where things change. Freedom of movement has ceased to be a right and become a dynamic digital permission. Imagine the social exile of being surrounded by people but being a ghost to the city. You try to take the subway, but the turnstile doesn't recognize your payment. You try to call an autonomous car, but the app refuses your request based on your risk score. The entire city becomes a sensory organism that repels you. This is where the trouble begins. Isolation doesn't require concrete walls when every occupancy sensor acts as a programmed lock against your existence. You are out, but you are locked out of life. Criminals missed the prison because there the limits were static. You knew where the wall ended. In the city cage of 2043, permitted territory shrinks and expands without warning, based on algorithmic calculations you cannot contest. Multi-sensory surveillance eliminates urban anonymity. Escaping is no longer an option because there are no more blind spots in the urban organism. Every corner is a biometric validation point that decides if your next step is legal or an infraction that will further reduce your space. This infrastructure responds to your profile with surgical precision. If the system detects erratic behavior, smart traffic lights can extend the red light just for you, or entire areas can be blocked by automatic mobile obstacles to prevent your passage. The cost to the individual is the transformation of public space into a laboratory of forced conformity. Security is maintained by physics applied via software. The environment executes the sentence without a single police officer needing to touch you. You are neutralized by the very architecture of the city. The punishment now is the impossibility of integration. Life becomes a cruel game of territorial permissions, where any mistake results in the shrinking of your world. You can see the lights, hear the music from the bars, and smell the food, but you cannot participate. You inhabit the same physical space as others, but in an opposite reality of access. The social cost is the total fragmentation of the human experience. The criminal lives in a distributed prison, where the warden is the occupancy sensor of the automatic door that refuses to open. Perhaps the greatest threat of this system isn't the blocking, but the normalization that public space is a conditioned resource. And this is already happening silently. Where access is dictated by algorithm, freedom is just a bookkeeping fiction. At the end of the day, you return to your small permitted perimeter, exhausted from fighting against doors that have no handles for you. The city doesn't hate you, it just doesn't recognize you as someone who belongs to it. And it's this technological silence that hurts more than any iron bar. You don't need to be locked up if the system can turn off your anger right at the source. Imagine you feel your blood boil. Someone insults you, rage rises in your chest, and you decide you're going to react. But in the millisecond your brain sends the command for your arm to move, an unbearable nausea floods your body. Your arm goes limp. Your vision darkens for a second. The anger is still there, but your capacity to act is gone. In 2043, custody has migrated from the environment to inside your skull. The final frontier of control isn't the skin, it's your neurons. Think with me. The frontier of control is now internal. Elon Musk has already demonstrated with Neuralink that brain-machine interfaces can monitor and stimulate specific areas of the brain in real time. For a criminal considered dangerous, the system doesn't offer rehabilitation. It imposes mandatory neurobiological modulation. The central mechanism is the monitoring of biomarkers and neural patterns of aggression in real time. Internal sensors detect cortisol spikes and motor intention patterns linked to violence. Control stops being persuasive and becomes inhibitory. Here, the system works perfectly, but only until you realize you are no longer the master of your own will. The technology converts an impulse of aggression into an automatic physiological aversion signal. The meaning is simple. The crime dies in thought before it becomes an action. This already appears in applied neuroscience studies where emotional states are mapped and regulated. The cost to the individual is the absolute loss of biological autonomy. You don't decide to calm down. The system forces you to. You become a passenger inside your own body. This is where things change. Free will becomes a managed, statistical illusion. This sensory punishment is invisible and omnipresent. In the old prison, you could feel rage, you could scream, you could hate the system in every cell of your being. In the 2043 model, hatred generates an immediate physical discomfort that forces you into submission. This is where the trouble begins. Internal resistance is neutralized by applied biology. The brain itself becomes a controlled zone, where certain thoughts are too expensive to be maintained. Criminals miss the prison because there they were still the masters of their own fury. In the neural modulation system, anger is treated as a system error to be corrected by the implant. If the individual tries to remove the device or bypass the signal, the cost is the deactivation of their motor functions or the induction of an automated state of sedation. Coercion is internal and unstoppable. The state doesn't need armed guards when it holds the key to your dopaminergic system. The peace you feel isn't real. It's a concession from the security software. This neurochemical modulation creates a forced calm that annihilates personality. The social cost is the creation of individuals who are functionally peaceful, but psychologically hijacked. The system responds faster than human impulse, eliminating the time window necessary for decision-making. Freedom, in this scenario, is just the absence of inhibitory stimuli, granted as long as you behave. Life under this regime becomes an experience of existential anesthesia. You lose the ability to react to the world with intensity, because any emotional deviation is a risk. The environment executes the sentence directly in your central nervous system. The criminal lives in a cell of synthetic neurotransmitters, where the walls are made of chemical inhibition. Punishment is existential and biological, making redemption a matter of software adjustment, not character change. If intention is neutralized at the source, the concept of guilt disappears and gives way to the concept of malfunction. Where the mind is a zone of state control, individuality dies silently under the pretext of treating conduct disorders and ensuring order. Perhaps the future isn't about technology, but about who still has the right to their own brain. The transition to this model redefines the nature of the human. If the system can stop your thought, it doesn't need walls. Where the mind is monitored, resistance is futile. And this is already being designed in neurotechnology labs today. Imagine returning home, closing your eyes, and knowing that even your dreams are being scanned for risk patterns. The final question isn't what you are going to do, but whether you still have permission to want to do it. What do you do with a man who has nothing to lose? In history, this has always been the most dangerous profile for power. If he doesn't fear death, pain, or poverty, traditional tools of control fail. But in 2043, the system stopped trying to convince this man. It simply turned him off. For the violent criminal who doesn't fear the social score, the answer isn't a concrete cell, but a mandatory physical restraint suit. Control stopped being social and became purely mechanical. The danger was neutralized by physics, not by law. Notice this. The primary mechanism is the use of muscle restraint exoskeletons. These suits don't serve to give you strength, they serve to take it away. Integrated sensors monitor your muscle tension in real time. If you try to make a sudden movement or exceed the strength limit allowed for your risk profile, the suit applies a contrary active resistance. The technology converts your body into a low-power tool. The meaning is that you are physically prevented from being a threat, regardless of your furious will. Here, the control works perfectly, but only until you realize you've become an inert object. This already appears in exoskeleton prototypes designed for occupational safety, now adapted for criminal custody. The cost to the individual is the total degradation of physical sovereignty.
You may want to run,
but your suit ensures you only walk. This is where choice vanishes. The physics of the suit impose the rule more efficiently than any human guard. Punishment is the definitive loss of command over your own limbs. You are a passenger in your own body. Imagine the frustration of trying to strike the air and feeling your arms locked by electric motors that are stronger than your tendons. The dangerous criminal becomes a puppet under constant robotic supervision. If biometric monitoring detects an escalation of aggressiveness, the suit can simply lock your joints, leaving you frozen in space. This is where the trouble begins. The body ceases to be a means of expression and becomes hardware under external intervention. Public safety is maintained by applied physics, treating the human like a faulty machine that needs a torque limiter. For those considered an extreme risk, the system adds layers of automated proximity sedation. If the suit detects you are trying to bypass the sensors, microinjectors release chemical agents that induce forced calm. Nothing to lose is answered with nothing to control in your own body. Criminals miss the prison because there, they still had their strength intact. In the 2043 system, strength itself is a concession from the security software. Containment technology makes violence a technical impossibility, turning the aggressor into a static piece on the social board. This transformation of the human into an object under total physical custody redefines the limit of dignity. The social cost is the normalization that certain bodies can be mechanically deactivated for the sake of order. The system doesn't try to rehabilitate you, it neutralizes you. Life under this regime is a sequence of permitted and blocked movements, where motor autonomy is a privilege for those who behave. The environment executes the sentence through the physical resistance of your own suit. You live in a state of assisted functional paralysis, where freedom is only the space the suit's motors allow you to occupy. Physical exile becomes absolute, even if you are walking through a public square. You are in an invisible cell composed of movement algorithms and strength blocks. Punishment is perpetual, as long as risk is detected, making freedom a memory of when your body responded only to you. The criminal lives in a state of technical impotence, where your will always hits the hardness of silicon and steel. Perhaps the future is about who can still move without permission from a central server. Resistance has become futile because the system owns your muscles. In the end, the physical containment system eliminates the figure of the martyr or the rebel. There is no way to fight a machine that locks your punch before it begins. Control is silent, mechanical, and humiliating. Where physics is controlled by the state, the individual is nothing. And this is already being designed by defense companies seeking total containment solutions without the use of lethal weapons. The criminal of 2043 looks at hands trapped in a titanium suit and realizes that the true prison never needed walls. It only needed sensors and motors faster than his thought. Freedom in 2043 is a prepaid and unstable resource. Imagine you wake up and try to make coffee, but your coffee maker won't turn on. You try to leave your house, but your elevator doesn't recognize your command. You look at your phone and see a notification. Your social score dropped 15 points overnight due to a comment you made in a monitored environment. Suddenly, the world has started to go dark for you. The question isn't what you can do, but what the system still allows you to access. The score of existence is the air you breathe. Notice this. Punishment doesn't need to be physical pain when the system can simply erase your economic relevance. Think with me. If every infraction of yours is recorded on an immutable government blockchain, your past becomes a wall that prevents you from moving forward. The central mechanism is the total integration between digital identity and programmable digital currencies, the CBDCs. The point isn't that you are fined, it's that your money becomes programmatically unable to buy what you want. If your risk has gone up, your digital wallet blocks the payment for meat or subway tickets. Here, the control works perfectly. But only until you realize you've become economically non-existent. This already appears in expanding social credit systems, where behavior dictates insurance costs and access to credit. The cost to the individual is total financial isolation. The network becomes your digital warden. This is where choice vanishes. You aren't punished for what you did in the past. You are restricted by what your score says you are worth now. Immutable reputation is the new chain. The system never forgets and the algorithm never forgives. as every mistake is a fixed data point on the network. Imagine the isolation of not being able to pay rent or buy food because the algorithm decided you are a risk of instability. This is where the trouble begins. The system creates a class of digital invalids who inhabit physical space but are invisible to the economy. The punishment is the slow erosion of dignity through the denial of basic services. Public safety is maintained by the constant threat of financial exclusion. Criminals miss the prison because there, at least, food and shelter were guaranteed by the state. In the freedom of 2043, if your score drops, you simply cease to exist for the market. In the 2043 system, if your score is low, the cost of living automatically increases for you. Dynamic pricing technology transforms your life into an algorithmic survival game. If you try to bypass the system, the AI detects the anomaly in your consumption pattern and further reduces your permissions. Punishment never ends because the system never stops measuring. You live in a 24-hour sentence renewed every second. Financial surveillance creates an environment of absolute conformity through the fear of extreme poverty and social blackout. The social cost is the death of genuine starting over. Where everything is recorded and priced, forgiveness becomes a computational logic error. The system responds to the infraction with the coldness of a self-executing smart contract. Freedom, in this context, is just a positive balance in a behavior account that the state can freeze at any moment. You become a monitored gear whose value is dictated by a central bank of conduct. Life under the score of existence is an experience of constant anxiety, where every word spoken in public is weighed by the algorithm's scale. The environment executes the sentence through programmed scarcity. The criminal lives in a prison of data, where the bars are made of risk calculations and the walls are bank transaction blocks. Punishment is systemic and acts on all dimensions of life simultaneously. Perhaps the future is about who can still exist outside of the state metric. The transition to this model signals the end of the era of rights and the beginning of the era of human risk management. If the system owns your ability to transact, it owns your will. In the end, the score of existence makes obedience a matter of basic biological survival. Where credit is conditioned on conduct, freedom is just a useful accounting fiction for power. And this is already being implemented through the total digitalization of the economy. The criminal of 2043 looks at the balance in his wallet and realizes he is a prisoner of a number he cannot control. The system doesn't need guards to keep you in line. It just needs a server that decides if your money is still worth a piece of bread today. You carry your sentence engraved in your retina. Imagine you decide to run away. You pack a bag, turn off your phone, and walk to the bus station of a distant city where no one knows you. You get in line, but the moment you pass the security camera, the system emits a discreet beep. The clerk looks at you with a mix of pity and fear. He doesn't need to ask your name. The system has already projected your criminal history onto his screen. In 2043, anonymity died, and with it, the chance to be nobody again died too. Notice this. The greatest comfort of the old prison was the possibility of one day leaving and starting over. But in 2043, technology has converted your neurophysiological signature into a permanent tracker. Think with me. If the system uses 8K facial recognition integrated with drone swarms, where are you going to go? The primary mechanism is persistent thermal and behavioral tracking. The point isn't that there are cameras, it's that the system recognizes your heart rate and voice pattern from miles away. This already appears in gait recognition technologies already in use by intelligence agencies. Here, the control works perfectly, but only until you realize your identity is your own cage. The cost to the individual is the technical impossibility of escape. The entire environment knows who you are before you open your mouth. Punishment in 2043 is total and forced transparency. Every mistake of your past is anchored in immutable records accessible by any security device. This is where things change. You are no longer a person who made a mistake. You are a walking risk that the system tries to mitigate. Where anonymity doesn't exist, the chance of a new life doesn't exist. Criminals miss the prison because there, between four walls, they could still have a secret. In the modern system, monitoring by drone swarms ensures that any attempt to hide is detected in seconds by infrared sensors. Isolation isn't spatial, but informational. You are surrounded by data that screams your guilt to any door you try to open. Public safety is maintained by the systematic elimination of any existential blind spot. You live in a permanent algorithmic judgment window, where your face is the key that locks all the doors. This biometric surveillance creates a state of constant exposure that annihilates the mind. The social cost is the death of redemption. If the system never forgets, the past becomes an eternal present. Data crossing technology makes the concept of a clean start a technical impossibility. You live in a sequence of validations and refusals. Every denied service serves as a reminder that your identity is your limit. The environment executes the sentence through constant exposure. The criminal lives in a prison of light and data, where there are no shadows to wrest from surveillance. This architecture of total exposure redefines what we understand by freedom. If you are watched in every heartbeat, your autonomy is just theater for the algorithm. The system responds to any attempt at concealment with an immediate increase in access restriction and a robotic presence around you. Coercion is informational and absolute, turning life into a data trail that the state uses to ensure conformity. Where anonymity is a crime, individuality is a threat. You are a prisoner of your own biography, recorded in every sensor in the city. Perhaps the future is about who can still be invisible to the network. The reality of 2043 shows us that technological progress, when focused on total transparency, only refines the methods of control. If the system knows your biological signature, it owns your trajectory. Where identity is an immutable record, man is a slave to his own history. And this is already happening with the integration of global biometric databases. The criminal looks at the reflection in the mirror and realizes that his face no longer belongs to him. It belongs to the police database. In the end of starting over is the end of hope. Without the possibility of reinventing oneself, the human being becomes only a function of his past mistakes. The system doesn't believe in change. It believes in statistical probability. And the probability says you are a risk. Where surveillance is total, forgiveness is a logic error that the code does not allow. You are free to walk, but you are tied to the image the system created of you. And that image is a cell that no physical key can open, for the warden is the eternal memory of the machine. The old prison had walls, the modern system doesn't. And maybe that's the problem. The criminal of 2043 misses the concrete for a simple reason. The cell had limits, but it also had privacy. When the lights went out and the door slammed, the prisoner was the master of his own silence. In 2043, the system eliminated the bars but turned the very air into a barrier and your body into a trap. Technology has converted freedom into a more sophisticated and cruel form of existential confinement. The end offers no way out because the system is the environment. Notice this. The real cost of the end of prisons was the end of individuality. Where control is distributed by robots, geofencing, and neural modulation, there is no outside. Think with me. Power no longer wants to separate you from society. It wants to integrate you as a monitored piece. The meaning is that your agency over your own life has been dissolved into the network. This is where choice vanishes definitively. Resistance has become a physical impossibility. Criminals miss the wall because the wall was something they could try to climb. Silicon, on the other hand, is impalpable and omnipresent. This already appears in the trend of replacing confinement with systems of algorithmic surveillance and biomedical intervention. The social cost is the creation of an organism where any misaligned cell is surrounded and silenced by technology. Security is maintained by risk management, not by justice. Punishment is perpetual and invisible, merging with routine until you forget what it's like to act without being measured. Physical freedom is irrelevant when your mind and movements belong to the central server. The problem has reached its peak. You are free to go anywhere, as long as the place accepts you. Perhaps the future isn't about technology, but about who can still refuse total integration. The criminal of 2043 realizes too late that the stone prison was a humanitarian luxury that allowed the right to secrets. In the modern system, even your biology is an accomplice to your warden. The environment executes the sentence in every monitored breath. Missing the concrete is missing being human in a world that treats you as data to be optimized. Life under the total custody system is a cycle of conformity that annihilates the soul in the name of perfect public order. Think of the paradox. Prisons have vanished, but the whole world has become an open-air prison complex. Control is so efficient that it has become invisible to most. But for those with a low score, the world is a maze of metal shadows. The cost of total security was the death of genuine redemption, replaced by a technical adjustment of behavior. Where the system decides your movement and your feeling, the concept of a person disappears. The transition to this model signals the definitive closing of the frontier between the public and the private. Technology didn't create a world without crime. It created a world where crime is impossible, and with it, humanity itself. Where the network is total, the individual is nothing. The criminal misses the cell because there he could still be a man. Here, he is just a statistic under surveillance. Silicon is a lie that calls you free while monitoring you down to the last nerve fiber. The reality of 2043 shows us that progress, when focused on control, only refines the methods of slavery. Perhaps the price of absolute peace is too high for those who still value their own will. The old prison had walls. The modern system doesn't. And maybe that's the problem.